It's not really a controversial thing to say that Disney has kind of been messing up Marvel and Star Wars in the past few years. I mean, when you look at Star Wars movies, they've been non-existent. We haven't gotten one since The Rise of Skywalker. And if that was like a purposeful decision, I would actually kind of respect it. But it's not really purposeful. Like, there have been movies and productions, whether it be Taika Waititi's movie, Kevin Feige's movie, Patty Jenkins' movie. Lucasfilm has just been too incompetent to get a movie made. We'll see if the Rey movie ever happens, or if James Mangold's movie ever happens, or if The Mandalorian and Grogu comes to fruition. And when it comes to the shows, I mean, yes, we have been getting them, but yeah, we've seen them. And the MCU obviously speaks for itself. Now, I've enjoyed the MCU more than most. I actually enjoyed She-Hulk. I don't think it's nearly as bad as people say. But, I mean, the MCU has been steadily declining to the point that the Marvels just straight up bombed. And that's not good. However, where Disney has actually been doing a pretty decent job is in gaming. I mean, let's look at Marvel games. Spider-Man 1, Miles Morales, and Spider-Man 2 are all really great games, with surprisingly great narratives as well. I think they've pretty much taken the crown away from Rocksteady, and Insomniac is now the premier video game developer, especially after the release of Suicide Squad earlier this year.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
Square Enix's Guardians of the Galaxy was also really great. The story was surprisingly phenomenal. Like, for a Guardians story without James Gunn's involvement, they did a damn good job of mimicking his comedy and sincere emotional storytelling. Granted, Marvel's Avengers did not do a good job of mimicking the MCU style of comedy and storytelling. Marvel was not immune to falling into the live service trap, but still, 1 miss out of 5 attempts is really solid. And then when you look at Star Wars, it's like, after EA's Battlefront debacle, we got the Star Wars Jedi games. I really liked Fallen Order. Still haven't played Survivor, but from what I hear, it's amazing. And Star Wars Squadrons is a game that kind of flew under the radar, no pun intended. But from what I understand, that game's supposed to be very good. And later this year, we're going to get Star Wars Outlaws, which also looks really good. We'll see if Ubisoft can make a good game. But we just got some news that I think paints a very sour picture on the future of Marvel and Star Wars games. Now, this story comes within a broader picture of the video games industry that I feel like I should set up. It's kind of not in a great place at the moment. 2024 has seen almost 10,000 game layoffs, including the big dogs like Sony, which laid off 900 people, and Microsoft, which laid off 1,900 people. And yeah, it does not stop there. One of the companies that's been impacted is Electronic Arts. Now, Electronic Arts, they made the Star Wars Jedi games as well as Star Wars Squadrons, and they were in development on a first-person Mandalorian game, and they're no longer in development of that game because it has been canceled. And I gotta say, when it comes to Star Wars announcing and then canceling projects, technically they didn't announce this game, it was just reported on a week ago, but this is a goddamn record. And this is disappointing. I mean, we weren't going to be playing as the Mandalorian, as in Din Djarin or Pedro Pascal, but we were going to play as a new Mandalorian character. We were going to hunt for bounties and whatnot. The combat was supposed to be very fast-paced. It says that it was going to be somewhat reminiscent of Doom. We were going to have a jetpack, which was going to allow for vertical gameplay as well. I mean, but we're not getting it anymore. So with the announcement that they canceled this game as well as the layoffs, the CEO of EA, Andrew Wilson, gave a quote that I think is directly addressing even the Marvel games that they're developing. Because if you don't know, EA is also working on an Iron Man game and a Black Panther game. EA CEO Andrew Wilson, he said that the company is also moving away from development of future licensed IP that we do not believe will be successful in our changing industry. This greater focus allows us to drive creativity, accelerate innovation, and double down on our biggest opportunities, including our owned IP, sports, and massive online communities to deliver the entertainment players want today and tomorrow. Hearing that tells me that EA is no longer interested in working with Disney. Now, I should mention here that an EA representative did confirm that the Black Panther and Iron Man game are still in development, and they didn't announce that the third Star Wars Jedi game is canceled or anything, so I think we're probably going to get the third Star Wars Jedi game so that they can close out that trilogy, and I think we'll get the Iron Man and Black Panther games that are currently in development, but it seems like that's where EA is going to end with their licensed IP. And the big question that I have is, why? I mean, as far as we can tell, the Star Wars Jedi games have been massive successes. If the Iron Man and Black Panther games are good, you have to imagine that they're going to sell a decent amount of copies, right? Well, I think the answer might come from the Insomniac Spider-Man games. You see, in December of last year, Insomniac actually got hacked, and they revealed a bunch of information that I think could possibly tell us about what's the deal with all of this. In that leak, we saw that Spider-Man 2 cost $315 million, and that they're projecting Spider-Man 3 to cost $385 million. That's a lot of money. And we also got a peek at the Marvel royalties. This is obviously from the upcoming X-Men games, not necessarily from the Spider-Man games, but you'd assume that they're similar. And then when it comes to the Marvel royalty, Marvel gets 9 to 18% of digital game sales, 19 to 26% of physical game sales, 19 to 26% of DLC sales, and 35 to 50% of hardware bundle sales. Holy shit. I mean, listen, these Marvel games obviously make a lot of money, and I'm sure Sony is still making a decent amount of money off of this, but that's a pretty serious tax. And I mean, listen, I don't know any of this for sure, but a big reason why I would assume that Sony is able to justify making this agreement with Marvel is because, in a way, these Spider-Man games are essentially big commercials for the PS5. There's probably not an insignificant amount of people that have waited until Spider-Man 2 to get the PS5. They're probably not going to be an insignificant amount of people that see Wolverine comes out, and I'm assuming it's going to be awesome, and that they're going to be like, all right, fuck it, I'll get a PS5 now. So it's like, even if they don't make as much of a profit on the games themselves, people buying the PS5 and then playing Fortnite and whatever other games they buy on the platform will eventually make the whole thing make sense. If you're EA, on the other hand, if Disney takes this big of a cut on each Star Wars Jedi game, and potentially that Mandalorian game that they canceled, and then Iron Man and Black Panther, is this really going to be worth it for EA? I mean, especially when you look at the declining popularity of Star Wars and Marvel, assuming that these are just the standard budgets for these massive AAA games nowadays, is EA really going to want to spend potentially $385 million on another Iron Man game and another Black Panther game? Because EA doesn't have a fucking console. The revenue that they make on their games is what ultimately sustains them in the long run. And the other thing that needs to be said is that Insomniac's Spider-Man games have set the standard. I don't think that they can just come out with like a mediocre Iron Man game or a mediocre Black Panther game. I mean, I think whenever these games come out, people are going to want it to be as great as the Insomniac Spider-Man games. And listen, I don't know the specifics to all of this, but do you actually need to spend that much money to make games as good as the Insomniac Spider-Man games? I honestly don't have the answer to that. I mean, I would hope that you could maybe scale the budget down and still come out with a great product, but guess what? They can't come out with a Gotham Knights. They can't come out with a Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. That's not going to cut it these days. It's like we've seen the Spider-Man games. That's what we want, okay? So either make that or don't make it at all. And it seems like EA is potentially just not going to make it at all. So now we have to look at all of Disney's other partners, right? Ubisoft is making Star Wars Outlaws, which, looks really cool, but is Ubisoft going to be able to justify making another Star Wars game after this? Quantic Dream is also making a Star Wars game. First of all, is that whenever even going to come out? But if it does come out, are they going to continue after that? There's that Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic game that's supposedly being made by Saber Interactive. Again, is that one ever going to come out? Who the hell knows? But Skydance New Media is working on an untitled Captain America Black Panther game. Again, hopefully that's great, but is that where that's going to end? Arcane Leon, which is owned by Microsoft, they're working on a Blade game. Now, that game is owned by Microsoft, so, they obviously have their own platform to promote, so maybe they can also justify making these games. But I'd hate to see a reality where only Sony and Microsoft are really able to justify making Marvel and Star Wars games. Now, there is one other interesting move that Disney has made that might speak to the future of Marvel and Star Wars, and it's the fact that Disney recently invested $1.5 billion in Epic Games. Now, Epic Games is the studio that makes Fortnite. Disney invested in them and is partnering with them to make what they are calling an expansive and open games and entertainment universe that's connected to Fortnite. I don't know what that means, really. It could be something as dubious and boring as, oh, it's just like a Disney World that you can jump around in within Fortnite. But could they be looking to turn Fortnite into like a Roblox maybe, where like Roblox is like this platform where people make games within it? Like, I'm just spitballing here, but I'm like, could we see Marvel and Star Wars games like within Fortnite? I mean, we've seen Epic Games kind of like make games within Fortnite. Like Lego Fortnite is its own game. We saw the Rocket League developers just make a kart racer within Fortnite. We saw the Guitar Hero developers make a rhythm game within Fortnite. I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous, but especially after looking at Lego Fortnite, maybe Epic just makes a fucking Captain America game. I don't fucking know. I remember that they put web swinging in Fortnite, and I never played it, but people said that it actually felt pretty good. So, like, could they potentially just make a game at some point? I don't know. I don't think that that's an impossibility. But, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, this is what I value as a Marvel fan and as a Star Wars casual enjoyer. I really like single-player, narrative-driven games. That is something that I value. That is what I want out of my Marvel and Star Wars games. And EA stepping away from making those kinds of games, at least within the Marvel and Star Wars banner, is worrying to me, because I kind of understand that these games cost a hell of a lot of money to make, obviously. The Marvel tax is freaking egregious, and it seems like it just might not be viable to make these games when you can make your own IP and take all the profit of it. But here's something else that I'll add. We don't need these games to look like fucking Pixar movies, or they don't need to be as long as they are. I feel like there has to be some way to rein these budgets in, and we just got to do it, because, yeah, I don't want a future where Marvel and Star Wars is relegated to just Fortnite skins and like multiplayer games within Fortnite. That's just not the future that I necessarily want, but looking at all of the disparate pieces of evidence, it feels like that might be the future we're getting. So let me know what you think about any and all of this in the comments down below. This is a bit of a conspiracy theory video, but I'm connecting all the dots, and the picture is not pretty. So yeah, let me know what you think about any and all of this, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.